Thank you, Peter. Mr. Chancellor, Chair of the Board of Governors, Madam President, colleagues, graduands, and honoured guests, I have the honour of presenting Mr. Firdaus Kharas, distinguished public servant, social entrepreneur, and award-winning media producer. Born in Calcutta, Mr. Kharas received a prestigious Rotary Club exchange student scholarship that took him to Pennsylvania to complete his secondary school. He stayed there to earn his undergraduate degree in political science at Thiel College, which subsequently awarded him an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters. In 1978, he was recruited by one of my predecessors, Professor John Sigler, to attend the Norman Patterson School here at Carleton on full scholarship. And he was saying just before the ceremony that he had a choice between Carleton and Harvard, and I'm glad to say that even at that age, his great wisdom showed through. And he selected Carleton, which I alone think is worthy of getting an honorary degree. So I'm pleased to say that he did come to Carleton and is already a Carleton alumnus, having earned an MA in International Affairs, a distinction which, as of yesterday, he also shares with his son, Nicholas. He also chose Canada as his home and country of citizenship. And after graduating from Carleton, Mr. Kharas went on to study marketing and law at the University of Ottawa, management at Harvard University, and social innovation at Stanford. Mr. Kharas's commitment to making the world a better place first led him to become Executive Director of the United Nations Association in Canada, where his work earned him the United Nations Peace Medal. He then entered public service as a policy advisor to the then Minister of Employment and Immigration, Barbara McDougall, before eventually becoming Assistant Deputy Chair of the Immigration and Refugee Board. Knowing that he could do even more to address global social problems, Mr. Kharas left the public service in 1995 to establish Chocolate Mousse Media. From here, he has produced innovative animated productions, dramatic series, and documentaries that spoke to global audiences, often giving voice to communities who previously had not been heard, often about themes of deep social importance. These award-winning productions have appeared in HBO, the Disney Channel, Discovery Channel, Nickelodeon, YouTube, and many other places. However, his creative genius and social conscience found an even more profound outlet through his work on public service announcements. His campaigns for children's rights, ending domestic violence, and malaria prevention have been astounding in their effect. The Three Amigos campaign production to help stop the spread of HIV/AIDS, launched in 2005, has been translated into 45 languages and won the 2006 George Foster Peabody Award. Archbishop Desmond Tutu lauded his HIV/AIDS production as an outstanding contribution, while other commentators have credited him and his innovative campaign, without exaggeration, as saving the lives of millions of people. Mr. Chancellor, in recognition of his innovative work as a social entrepreneur and for his contributions to the advancement of public health and children's rights in a global context, I request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa upon Firdaus Kharas.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Governors and upon recommendation by the University Senate, I confer upon you this degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa. Congratulations.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Dane, for that very generous and kind introduction. Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chairman of the Board, Madam President, honored guests, and the most important people here today, graduates. I am deeply touched and humbled by this very high honor. I would like to thank the Senate of Carleton and Dr. Runte very much for this honorary degree, which I shall cherish for the rest of my life. This recognition is not just for me, but is shared by many people, including over 1,000 volunteers that have joined with me in a quest to better the human condition using mass communications. This is a celebration not of which jobs I've had, but of who I am. Who I am is who you can be. Let me explain. Today is a major milestone in my journey, a journey that has been marked with successes and failures, a journey that, as Dr. Rowlands mentioned, has taken me from India to the United States to Canada. It is not a path that has always been clear to outsiders, but has always been clear to me. For better or for worse, it is a life filled with trying to prove to others what others say can't be done, can be done. To being out in front as a disruptor, to continually reaching beyond my grasp, to fulfilling my dreams. When I told people 20 years ago I was going to start what I called a hybrid company using for-profit media work to fund non-profit media for social change across many cultures, and I would give away my work for free, more than one accountant and international affairs expert gave me a highly quizzical look. And for those of you who are business students, you know that today there are hundreds of thousands of companies combining profit with doing good, and you studied them as social enterprises. So today, if you're feeling a little left out, you're a bit of a maverick, you have an idea that isn't readily understood or embraced by those around you, just go for it. Just go for it. Don't let anybody stop you, because your originality and your tenacity might be enough to bring you back here in 35 years to receive an honorary doctorate. When I was quite small, perhaps 8 years old, I was taken to meet Mother Teresa by my mother, who was then unknown outside of my birthplace, Calcutta. The image of Mother Teresa working in a huge room with the poorest of the poor dying on cots is still etched in my mind as if it were just yesterday. Looking back, I know I grasped then the importance of living and working outside of one's comfort zone for the benefit of others. It manifested itself later in Bombay, when my best friend and I taught in a slum every Saturday to whomever attended. We taught whatever we were learning in our very elite high school. Our high school wasn't very far from the slum, but was light years away in every other aspect. From India, as Dr. Rowlands mentioned, I went to Pennsylvania, from where I first visited Carleton as an undergraduate student in 1977. At that time, the director of the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, Dr. Rowlands' predecessor, was Dr. John Ziegler, and he did indeed, in a very brief conversation, persuade me to apply to Carleton, offering me a full scholarship. That day, that conversation changed my life, and I am forever grateful to Dr. John Ziegler. I want to mark today with deep respect and admiration for him and wish him well. It turned out to be not just a matter of spending a couple of years in Ottawa getting a degree. As was mentioned, I subsequently settled down here and had a family, and yesterday my son crossed the stage as a graduate of NIPSIA and got his master's, and I'll add that tomorrow my daughter will graduate from the University of Ottawa. So we've had 3 graduations in 3 days. I lived in Glengarry House here on campus. I don't actually recall coming out to the tunnels very much for an entire winter, except once when I went to walk on the canal and put one foot through it. Hey, I was then a foreign student from India with not a lot of experience walking on ice. Overall, I had a great time at Carleton, but I gotta say, I confronted some skepticism. I wrote my research essay on a draft international convention against the use of torture. Now, I know you're not international affairs students today, but let me tell you, the examining board didn't really like my essay. It didn't go over terribly well. They couldn't understand the nexus between what I was studying, which was conflict analysis, and human rights. You see, and maybe you don't know as architecture students what I mean, but the concept of human security had not yet been born, and a link between political instability and the widespread abuse of human rights was a very novel idea back then. 9 years after I was at Carleton, the United Nations Convention Against Torture did come into effect. Today, there is a standard to which governments can be held and that courts can uphold. People now know they have a right not to be tortured. As a result, there are many less people being tortured today than when I was here at Carleton in 1979 studying the issue. My research at Carleton wasn't just about drafting a legal document. It was much broader, on the reasons to have a convention, to further the notion that people everywhere matter, that they have fundamental rights as human beings, and that they can expect assistance when they are abused. I have always believed that our shared commonalities as human beings affirm that we will not tolerate mistreatment or injustice, that if we can save the life of a child, we should, that if we have the power to bring somebody out of the crushing burden of poverty and scarcity, that is our duty, and that if we have the talent to effect change for the better, we must use it. I'm having a lot of fun. I do what I do because I live with a great sense of hope, and I have boundless optimism. If you look just at the daily headlines about what is happening around our planet and I'm pessimistic, you don't understand the data. However, if you meet the many people who are working to keep this earth beautiful and are endeavoring to enrich the lives of all of us and aren't optimistic, you don't have a pulse. Having traveled to over 130 countries around the world, what I see everywhere are ordinary people willing to confront difficulties and incalculable odds sometimes to bring about justice, progress, and joy. So many have inspired me and aided me over the years. There are many in this room. I'm not sure where they all are, but there are many in this room, and I thank them profusely. Others are far away. I think of the old bearded man who came to our school in the slum in Bombay every Saturday to learn in a classroom for the first time. I think of the Roman Catholic priest who defied his Pope here in Ottawa to give voice to our HIV/AIDS campaign that Dr. Rillons mentioned because he thought it was the right thing to do for Africa. I think of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who Dr. Rillons mentioned, supported my work. I once wrote to him, worried that I had embarrassed him because we were attacked together because of his support for my work on a very right-wing, well-known American radio show. He used his usual grace and humor to tell me to put on my tin hat and get back into the trenches. I think of the young boy I interviewed recently in Bangladesh for a documentary who had been trafficked at the age of 3 to the Middle East as a child camel jockey. When he returned to his country, he didn't know who his parents were, but he continued to look for them village by village with hope. I think of the Maasai women in Kenya who took me on a bright sunny day into their hut, which was totally dark inside. I used my flash to take a photograph of the ceiling, which when I saw in my hotel room almost defied belief. It was pitch black, literally dripping with soot from burning fires and kerosene lamps in that hut. A $10 solar light would transform their lives, giving them wealth and solving their many health problems. I think of the 12-year-old child who got up at 5 a.m. in darkness to walk to a radio station in rural Sierra Leone during the height of the Ebola crisis last year to give voice to our animated prevention video. He was determined to warn others in his community about the deadly virus then ravaging his country. They are the determined. They are the right. They are the meaningful. They are our examples. None of these people live in despondency. They have all confronted their difficulties, risen from their setbacks, and now make a difference. No matter where we are, we can inspire and motivate each other. Innovation and technology are changing our way of thinking and of doing. 20 years ago, when I started my work to use mass communications to better the human condition, the world was only able to receive information passively through television and radio. We are now at a new point of human history, which has opened up endless opportunities for development. And this new age is characterized by global, instant, widespread, personal, two-way communications, which is why I say to you, during the 4 or 6 years that you spent at Carleton, the world has become a smaller place. My work rests on a deeply held belief that we can meaningfully communicate with each other despite the many barriers that separate us as human beings. Languages and cultures, tribes and ethnicities, borders and geographies. We have forgotten the commonalities that we have as a species and have instead accentuated the differences like culture and religion. Modern communications can help us bridge our differences, creating knowledge and understanding of each other, and I hope someday returning us to the concept of one human family. When I was at the United Nations giving a press conference to launch the Buzz and Bite malaria prevention campaign, I was asked by a journalist, is there any issue you think cannot be made better by mass communications? I thought for a while and I said, no, I can't think of any such issue. Some will take longer and some will take shorter, but all can be positively impacted. In the case of malaria, I am confident, for example, that with mass awareness or prevention campaigns, with prevention methods being known, the greatest killer on this planet, the mosquito, will be defeated, and that malaria will be wiped out in our lifetimes. Graduates, it's an exciting time to be alive, especially when you have more tomorrows than yesterdays. For those of you ending your studies today, now, at last, you can begin. You are armed with a very good higher education. It doesn't matter what you studied. You have the power to create happiness, the power to make change. This is your time. If you stay focused on your goals, you will succeed. All it'll take is a deep passion in what you want to achieve and a profound belief in yourself. Above all else, please don't listen to anyone who says it can't or shouldn't be done. My generation now turns to you. As you go forth in your careers, my plea to you is to keep our collective hope alive. Let me propel you forward by telling you what I have discovered. the great truth of the human experience is that being selfless, kind, generous, and caring are the best things you can do for yourself. So I'm asking you, not just for the others that you will help, but also for your own well-being. Congratulations, graduates. Go out there and have a truly wonderful life. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your very special day. Thank you.